Good. Okay, next up we have Mike O'Sullivan and Zainab Rizvi from Auckland University. Engineering. Mike's an associate professor in the Engineering Science and Biomedical Engineering Department, and he's also Deputy Director of Aotearoa New Zealand Centre of Research Excellence in Complex Systems, Te Pūnaha Matatini. And he likes using modelling and technology such as AI and VR to help communities assess science and engineering to support them to be heard when solving complex issues. And Zainab is a PhD student with Mike, specialising in energy systems, digital transformation, distributed energy, and her interests are in information systems and just transition, just digital transformation and energy systems. And both have been working in the region with having conversations with a number of groups over the last 12 months. So we thought it would be nice to invite them along to hear a bit more about how they can help us. Just for speakers, you just need to hold this really close to your mouth, unfortunately.
Kia ora manu. No ara ni me haina oku tupuna, ko Sullivan toko whānau, ko tātou te aratu toka poli e noho ana o ki ngā whenua me ngā wai tapu o te karo amaki. Tina ka mihi, tina koutou, ka makahau. So I'm Mike O'Sullivan, as Manu said, Associate Professor at the University of Auckland. I'm originally from Ireland and China, and I live in Te Aratu where Te Karo is the mana whenua, and so I just want to acknowledge them. And I'm just going to pause and pass on to Zainab to introduce herself before I keep going.
Kia ora. Mic is kind of weird. So my name is Zainab Rizvi. Right now I'm living in Auckland. I come from Pakistan. I come from a civilization and also a river-based nation, and we're an agricultural society. And last year when I came here, I was just starting out my PhD, and coming here changed its direction from energy planning to capacity planning to resilience. So we'll talk about it further, but I'm hoping that my research can be of some help to you guys.
So as you can see on the slide, I do lots of stuff. It's mostly modelling, AI, trying to understand systems, trying to help make better decisions in systems, and what I'm going to talk about today is about how we can use that to help communities get a voice, really, with the science, which sometimes is really inaccessible. However, I've got about half as long as I thought I have, so I'm going to smash through some stuff and skip some slides. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what Te Pūnaha Matatini is, and then I'm going to introduce Rasta, which is how I met Manu and Renee and Holly. A little bit about some digital twin stuff, then I'll pass to Zainab about energy transmissions, and we probably won't have enough time for digital ecosystems, but I might try and sneak that in anyway. So Te Pūnaha Matatini, our slogan is complexity is at our heart, and it is a New Zealand Centre of Research Excellence working on complex systems, which I think you'll probably all agree, Tairāwhiti has certainly been a very complex system over the last little while, and we hope we can do some stuff to help. That one, so we're hosted at the University of Auckland. We're one of 4 cores there. There's 6 other cores, so there's 10 throughout the country where they're complex systems people. There's all kinds of people doing other things. We've got over 100 investigators throughout the motu, doing all sorts of things. As you heard, Holly does sociology, I do maths, we have ecologists, we have people in maths education, all kinds of different things. And I think the key part, I'll skip past all these are various people involved. We partner with lots of different organisations, so we really bring research excellence kind of across the spectrum of all kinds of areas. And we're really interested in not just doing our own research, but really transdisciplinary stuff, which is bringing lots of researchers together to explore all the different, holistically how systems work, how communities work, how nature and climate change affect communities. We're also big in bringing up younger people, so we have lots of early career researchers in whānau. as Holly said, I've been working in my own community in Pt2 in this area, and I've found that incredibly enriching, and I think the idea of bringing through our rangatahi with a good understanding of how they can use science and technology to help improve their communities is a key reason why I'm even here. Some of them, this is just a quick snapshot of all the sort of research, these are our core research projects at the moment, and I just put this up to show you we do lots of things. I'm going to skip that one. One of the things that we also do is we don't do research just for the sake of doing research. We do research because we want to have impact, because we want to help communities. And a big part of that is communicating. So you might recognise that the pink-haired woman, particularly over to your right, Susie Wiles. So she's one of our investigators, and I think her communication about science, I think, was really key in various points of time. And then we have Rebecca Priestley also. So we've been winning communication prizes. Diane Sikapau Tonu, I think is her last name, just won New Zealand Science Communicator of the Year, and she's one of our investigators too. So not only do we care about science and helping communities, we also want to communicate it well so that people have a voice also back into that science, I think. We do interesting things. So Maths Craft is showing the complexity of maths and crafting, and that's now Maths Crafts in a box. So lots of schools throughout the motto have bought Maths Crafts in a box to teach their kids about maths through doing interesting crafting projects. We do things from a values-based perspective. So again, it's not about doing science for the sake of science. It's about we want to do the right thing. We want to do it in the right way. We want to do it ethically. So a lot of data sovereignty is a key part of what we're doing. Giving back to the communities we're working with, so partnering, and that's why working with Manu and Holly and Renee has been really great, because it feels like a partnership. It's not doing stuff to people, which I think Manu said. And that's really that manaakitanga of care. And I think these are things that are really important for TPM. Yep, I'll skip that. And so one of the key ideas of TPM is the idea of the shag, which when they fly, they all start off as taking off and all a bit mixed up, and then they form the flying wedge, and then someone takes the front of the wedge and breaks the wind for everyone else behind it, and they swap and take turns. So I think TPM is about working together to do things better, but also taking turns at sort of leading that and taking the burden. Okay, so that's about TPM. So I'm going to talk now about what we're doing here, which is Rasta, and that's not my name. So that one, you can blame Atawhai Tibble for that. So he's on the advisory board for TPM. When I heard about what was happening here on the East Coast, I texted him and just said, hey Atawhai, I hope your whānau up there are okay. And he rang me about 10 minutes later and said, Mike, we've got to go do something. Put me in touch with Manu. I also reached out to Auckland University and found these other people, and you can see the green links mean that a lot of them were already working with communities here in Tairawhiti, and then we got connected into Renee, Manu, Harley, and then Holly joined us. I think I was flying down in August, and someone said, oh, Holly's one of the investigators, and she's down there, and she joined us, and I think that's gone absolutely amazing from there. We have Celine, who is runs flood modelling for all of New Zealand, and Elodie, who's actually an economist, and we want to start looking at not only the physical effects of flooding, but the economic effects, and if we change land use, what would that mean for the economy? So those sort of complicated questions. We had a visit down to Makarika and Uawa and Gisborne District Council in August, and that was I really enjoyed the trip, but it was also sad. It was sad for me to see what had happened, and driving up the coast and seeing the devastation and feeling the anxiety around rainfall was pretty moving actually, and just maybe more motivated me more to try and help here. The anniversary day floods in Auckland that flooded out Massey Pony Club, which is where my daughters ride. Luckily no one was hurt, no horses were injured, but every time it rains I'm always checking to see you know, what's the levels like there? So I sort of have a small little piece of probably what some of you are feeling. Manu and I are doing the horizon scan. Manu, I haven't told you this, we've got to do a report for that. And then obviously Holly and others have picked up their session, their research you'll hear about later. Anna and Renee have been doing the creative research project, which you'll also hear about later. And then what I'm working on, and which Zainab was part of, is really the idea of empowering community with digital ecosystems, which I'll explain a little bit later on. So when we first came down, we started looking at digital twin of flooding. Apologies for the bad resolution here. I grabbed this off an app. So this was actually the Land Information New Zealand app, and that's a river up the coast a wee bit, and I just wanted to see if we could build a model that quickly. Turns out using the land information data set, we can go from this flat model to this 3D model here, which is in it's actually gaming software called Unity, and then we can make it rain. So this is rainfall coming down in the hills here, and then this is a close-up of just seeing what happens as the river fills up and the flood happens. And this is all very proof of concept, so it doesn't look quite realistic yet, but that's the goal, to make it get more realistic as we go. And so then what that means is we can calibrate our models so it looks like what happened in actuality, and without wanting to re-traumatize anyone, hopefully we can get you the lived experience of people of what this looked like and get a good model of what happened. And then, and this is going to look really rough, but I was just playing with it, you can do things. So here I just went and, did anyone else used to dam rivers as a kid? I used to dam them all the time at the beach and at our friends who lived there at our lifestyle block, and we would just go and dam the creek with clay and then push the dam and watch So I just dammed the creek here. So I just went into the VR model and put lumps of earth there, and you can see sort of stopped it. So it doesn't really do anything useful, but that's kind of the idea, is you can start now playing around in this virtual world of things that you can do. So I was really interested to hear Tim talk about the stop banks and see if we could put that into the model and then see what the effect of those new stop banks would be. Rain can be heavier or lighter, yeah, so we can, and the amount of water coming into the river from the boundary conditions, so we can change everything around to try and match up. So one of the things we're actually trying to do next to the project this year is try and calibrate it off video, so you can kind of put a camera anywhere you want in that environment and take a photo, so we can look at photos from various people. So if you want to send, I say send all your footage to Manu and he can pass it on to me. Sorry, Manu. Yeah, so we're going to try and calibrate from those sort of things. So I'm going to pause and let Zainab take over. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Sorry, Zainab.
Hi. My research is about, first off, we want to evaluate the effect of microgrids or microinfrastructure on the New Zealand energy infrastructure system. So I think I should first explain what microgrids and microinfrastructures are. So microinfrastructure is when you have a small independent system which can provide at least power, water, and waste management. So this is microinfrastructure. So part of it is microgrid, which deals with your power. So you become sort of independent for your power needs. Okay. So how do you do that? I'll go further into that later on. And then why do we do that? So that we can make New Zealand's energy system more resilient and have more capacity. And then and in the meanwhile, this is happening already. We have to build more infrastructure to increase the capacity of the New Zealand infrastructure. So, but what we want to do is make sure that this is done in a just way, that there are no people who are left behind and others who can move forward. So this is just transitions. And lastly, why? Because we want to enable communities to be resilient and have digital transformation tools to manage their needs. So this is the why of my research. And what is happening in New Zealand is that we have a two-faced problem. The first is the resilience issue, which you guys are facing here in Te Rāwhiti. You're the poster child for this, as Tim said. That now the questions of resilience, the need, the budget for resilience has completely changed from where it was a year ago, 2 years ago, a century ago. So that's one side of the problem. The other side is the capacity problem. Because New Zealand is going towards electrification of their transport, because they want to transition to renewable energy, we need more electricity. So how are we going to do those two things while making sure that everyone gets a piece of this pie? That's the question. And so how are we going to solve this problem? My suggestion is we use microgrids. And so basically, I want to skip this because I'm sure most people know about the New Zealand infrastructure, how energy is, how power is produced and distributed along in New Zealand. And so I want to discuss what is a microgrid. So a microgrid is basically, if you have a renewable source of energy, it could be wind, it could be solar, either or, and then you have a way to control your demand and your supply, to navigate it, to regulate it. And how do you use that? You have a controller here, which helps you regulate it. So you have, when do you charge your electric vehicle if you have an electric vehicle? When do you, when do you use your heat pumps? When do you use your heating, your water pumps, etc. So this is what we can do, and what we need for that is either we can connect with the grid or we can be independent. And then also we can use the forecasting tools that are available to just predict when we're going to have how much energy and use it wisely. One of the things that you could do is if there's batteries involved, what can happen is if you're expecting power outages, you can start storing energy in your batteries to survive events. This is the solution. So this is what we're trying to work on. How does it work for New Zealand? What kind of renewable energy sources are available in a region? How will it affect the whole grid once one body starts producing its own energy? That's the question we're trying to solve in this first year. And is microgrid a unknown entity? No, it's very well known. It's been adopted in the US and Japan. In the US, it's for capacity building. And in Japan, because they also have the problem of constant major events happening, so they use microgrids for resilience. It's the same case we're seeing usage in India, in Australia, in Pakistan. So this is coming up. And yeah, so up till now, what I've been able to do is, this is how New Zealand's energy is distributed between the North Island and the South Island. And I have been able to model it similarly with Terafiti separately. If you can see that small red dot over there. So Terafiti separately, and I've been trying to make it as close as possible to the original so that we can now start playing around with what happens if we have this much amount, if Terafiti itself can produce this much amount of energy, what happens then? How will the whole grid respond to this kind of production? And this is the roadmap, I think. So basically right now I'm at level 0, JADE simulations. So this is AI simulations. Then the next is we're going to plot this on maps. And the next is that we're going to do a sensitivity analysis. How does this respond? Then we're going to go into the total cost of ownership for microgrids versus the next step is versus the cost of resilience capacity building. And then we can suggest a solution that, okay, this is how much it's going to cost you to build a resilient system. What if you make a different system, a decentralized system, and how much does that cost?
Thanks, Zainab. We're not quite finished. Well, I'm not finished. She's finished. You can sit down if you need to. So I think I've got 1 minute before afternoon tea, so then there's only 2 more slides, so it should be fine. So one of the key ideas that has come out of this community-based work and also my general work in digital twins and artificial intelligence and all these fancy words we like to use is, as I said before, we want to use this so communities have a voice, so communities can engage with the science in a way that you don't have to be able to read a blueprint, you don't have to be able to do plots, you can actually engage with it. And that was what the virtual reality side is about. And so that gets this idea of digital ecosystems. We have a community that gets involved in capturing data, that data is given meaning with various different contexts, so whether it's a 3D CAD model of your building, whether it's GIS showing where everything happens and other things, that all gets pulled together. So now you have one model of the whole community with lots of different aspects. So you can have roading, you can have land use, you can have biodiversity even. You add some artificial intelligence into it, and that means that you can play with stuff and see what happens, and then you feed it back to the community in a way that they can actually access it. So with virtual reality, the idea of serious games, storytelling around data. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're excluded from this whole process, so we need to make sure we communicate it really well. And an example of how this might be able to happen, in Tairāwhiti, I can send you that picture later. Very happy I've got lots of propaganda about this, so I can very easily share it. So I was just thinking how this might work, and in our conversations, I forget if it was with Makarika or Uawa, someone asked me, well, what we really want to know is when it rains up in the watershed, when do we have to worry about evacuating? And so I think that's something that with digital ecosystems is potentially we could do that. We could get our citizen scientists, and I told someone, citizen scientists to me is citizen scientists, but also our school students, because they can be citizen scientists. Maybe put some sensors up in the hills where they won't get washed away because the volume's not too big yet. Have a model that says, how does the rainfall up here match with what happens later? So you have that 3D train I showed with the liquid special effects, and then add a little bit of AI about when the rainfall looks like this, what might happen next, and also then when it's this level up in the watershed, what's going to happen once it hits down into the rivers. Put it back into either a serious game where you get to play with putting stop banks around to control the flooding, or you do some figure out evacuation routes, and so there's been quite a lot of serious work game around evacuating buildings from earthquakes. Or virtual reality, augmented reality, where you, again, you can look at what's happening, you can look at what should we do, you can identify places which are at risk over lots of different scenarios, or maybe these ideas, I'm not sure if this is even a word, I just made it up, these ideas of havens of safety. So what's the places which are going to be safe under all sorts of different scenarios? And then, bring that back to the community, so the community can be involved in the decision making, the problem solving, and that for me is really the point. This is definitely the last slide. So we said this last August. We're not here to get in the way. If you don't need us, we will go do other things, that's fine. If you need us, we just have a lot of skills, a lot of really good people, and because of our values-based tradition within Te Puna Matatini, we'd like to be able to help. And that's me. Kia ora.
Might have time for one quick, short question. Or we can all smell morning tea and would like to move through. Okay, we'll break there. You can bail these guys up at morning tea. And that's just through the doors at the back there. We've got an awesome next session that'll run through to lunchtime with the health impacts team. That's quite powerful, so hang around for that. Thanks, everybody. Someone will whakapai the kai when we get down there. You've only got 12 minutes, so don't muck around if you're hungry.